Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2019 Ford F-150 and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system. When you look at this particular kit on our website, you will see two versions. One will have a physical LED light that will stick to the back side of your mirror or somewhere on your dash that you can see it from your rear view camera on your coach. The other one is going to be the system that we installed, and that is the wireless coach link kit. When you're flat towing your F-150 down the road, you are going to have a way to apply the brakes in your vehicle so that you're safe when traveling down the road. Motorhomes, even a big one like we have here, we've got a Super C, it's still not designed to stop a whole vehicle like this. That's where the supplemental braking system comes into play. This particular one, being the Air Force One, is going to use an air signal from the motorhome to be able to activate the brake cylinder that is attached to our brake pedal. Whenever you hit the brakes in the coach, it's going to send a proportional air signal to the cylinder on the brake pedal, applying the brakes in the truck at the same rate as a motorhome. Underneath the hood of our truck, you're going to see the main operating unit. This is what is going to take the air signal from your coach. It'll take it inside this little box and then send it out and back underneath the footwell of your vehicle, applying the brakes to your truck. Our brake cylinder is going to clamp onto the side of our brake pedal. It's going to hold tight onto it, and there's going to be a cable system that's bolted to the firewall, and it's going to grab onto that brake pedal, and when you hit the brakes in your motorhome, it's going to pull that brake pedal towards the front wall of our firewall. As you'll notice, there's nothing that you have to set up in the footwell of our truck. It's all perfectly clean. The other thing with that is you don't have to worry about removing your floor mats or anything like that. We have our floor mats still out because we just got done installing this, but a lot of those other portable supplemental braking systems, you have to either remove the floor mat if you have an aftermarket one because it's too slick or whatever, because a lot of them are designed to stick to this carpet. The number one thing that I hate about the portable systems is that you have to set them up every single time you go to flat tow your truck. And for me personally, if I'm making a quick pit stop in a certain town because we want to explore for the day and then leave later that night or maybe the next morning, well, when you go to unhook your truck from the back of your motorhome, all you have to do with this braking system is unhook your airline and unhook the cable for your breakaway switch. That's it. You don't have to turn anything on or off. It just works as long as you're hooked up to the air signal. And what that means is when you get into your F-150, you unhook the flat towing components on the front side, hop in your F-150, take it out of flat tow mode, and take off to wherever you want to go. In the case of an unlikely disconnect, if your tow bar were to ever come disconnected from your base plate, your safety cables will stretch out. The safety cable that is on our breakaway switch is designed to be shorter than those cables. So what this will do is it'll pull, and then the brakes will be applied on the inside of your F-150, bringing your truck to a slow and safe stop behind your motorhome. As we've said earlier, this type of system is going to get an air signal from your motorhome, so you'll have to be able to get that through this umbilical cord. We'll have a little outlet on the front of our truck, or I guess it would be an inlet, and then we'll have an outlet on the back of our motorhome. From that outlet on the back of our motorhome, we do have to go to a reserve tank that comes with our kit that we have to get installed on the motorhome side. You essentially will have to tap into the air supply on your coach. That will help to keep that tank full. And then when you hit the brakes, you're also going to have to tap into the metered air that is on your coach, which is essentially the air that is given to the brakes on the coach whenever you hit the brake pedal. So there is going to be a little bit of the motorhome side that you will have to have installed if you don't already have an air chuck back here at the back designed for flat towing. Now, speaking of the installation, like I just said, I truly think that you can get the truck side installed yourself at home. If you don't think that you can, or you don't think you can do one or the other, feel free to check out our dealer locator on our website. That'll help to find the nearest installer to you that we've confirmed with them that they can do this particular install. Get on their schedule and have them install it for you. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the install. To begin our installation, we're going to need to mount up our main components in the engine bay, on the front bumper, and then in the footwell of our truck. The main operating unit, we've mounted up over here. Ford doesn't give you a whole lot of space to work with in the engine bay here, but this spot is open. I just took a piece of L tubing that we had. You can just use an L bracket. I self-tapped it into the wall over here, and then self-tapped our operating unit into this tube, and this is not going anywhere. So it's nice and secure so that when you're traveling down the road, it doesn't come loose. In the driver's footwell, we need to get our brake cylinder mounted up onto the side of our brake pedal. I'm going to mount this on the right side of our brake pedal. Against the firewall, we will need to mount up our support bracket. This is going to allow us to connect the brake cylinder foot to the firewall safely. With our mounting plate all secured to the firewall, we've got our brake cylinder here. You just want to take this plate off of it, and we're going to get it lined up with that firewall. That center hole is designed for this foot plate to go on it. And what you want to do is kind of get things lined up here. What I found is easier is you can get it lined up by just holding it and then make any adjustments to this cable with it not on the firewall, because it's very difficult to get this Allen key back there. I'm going to give myself a little bit more wiggle room and then tighten it back down. If you have adjustable pedals like we have here, you want to make sure that your pedals are all the way towards the seat. You do not want them to be down in there. Basically, the reason why this is if you go to adjust your pedals and you've got this tight, you can break the cable, or actually you probably wouldn't break the cable. You're going to damage something inside this cylinder. The cable's got a very high tensile strength. So we got it lined up here. This gives us a little bit of room to adjust so that we can get everything lined up right. So we'll take our self-tapping screw, put it in this foot, and then get it screwed to our firewall. I'm going to turn this foot. You can adjust it wherever you want to make it easy. That's kind of why it's offset, so that you can line it up straight with where you're going to mount up your brake cylinder. We'll get our brake cylinder roughly mocked up here. Get all four of the nuts onto these little studs, and then we can make any fine adjustments later. You want to make sure that your brake cylinder is pointed at that spot on the firewall. So once you get these on, you can kind of make your little adjustments. You want to make sure that there's a little bit of wiggle space in here. You do not want this cable to be tight. You want the brake pedal to be all the way back, which you can see right there. So make sure there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Make sure it's high enough out of the way of your foot so you don't hit it. The brake pedal is usually, this spot right here is usually the spot where everybody's foot hits. So it may look like it's really close, but your foot won't come anywhere close to it. Then we'll just take a 3/8 socket and tighten these down. The next step in our process is to get a bunch of wiring done. Then we'll come back and do the airline tubes and the vacuum line, stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and get the wiring done now. It's very, very confusing to see the wires run and stuff like that, so it's easier for me to just do it and come back and show you those connections that we made. Now in our footwell, we started off with a power wire, a ground wire, and our airline tubing. Up on the upper left side of our firewall, there's a little grommet that you already have some factory wiring running through. There's a little circle on there that leads to a access point on the outside of our truck, so on the inside of the engine bay. You just want to cut a small slit in that and cut a small slit on the other side and run some wiring out. You can use the airline tube that comes in your kit to run those wires out into the engine bay, because you're going to need the airline tube into the footwell of our driver's side anyway. Now with our wires pulled out into the engine bay, our white wire, we went ahead and hooked it right up to our ground. We just used a self-tapping screw right into our frame here. The other wire here is going to be one of the two black wires coming from our operating unit. The other black wire, it does not matter which one of these two that you're using, but the other black wire we just attached to a length of black wire along with our red wire and ran it over to the passenger side of our vehicle. The red wire will need to get tapped into the fuse holder that comes in your kit, and then another red wire down to the front bumper of our vehicle. This is going to connect up to our wires from our breakaway switch. And then the black wire that is coming over here will go to the black wire on the breakaway switch. So you can see right here, we were able to get it pulled up to the engine bay. Depending on where you mount it up, I gave myself plenty of slack here so that if I need to move the breakaway switch around a little bit, I can do that. But you want to leave this unhooked for now. You want to leave the fuse out of it. Whenever we go to make that connection, the last thing we do with this whole system is going to be to put that fuse in. To make your connections in the floorboard of our vehicle, we're going to need to connect the red wire from our Demco coach link to the blue wire on our reed switch on our brake cylinder, and then the brown wire on our reed switch will go to the red wire that is going out to our battery. The white wire from our coach link will then go to the ground wire that we ran out through the firewall, going to the ground frame. And since we're down here anyway, we're going to take our airline tube, make sure that you got a nice straight cut on the end of it. We're going to pop this into our into the brake cylinder here. I'm going to try to point the letters towards you guys. This is the best way I can explain it. You can see these letters. You want to slide it in, and you notice how it stopped, but you can still see RO on it. Pop it in further, and you notice that those letterings, they went away. That means that we're past that O-ring. There's a little pop at the end. The first thing that you'll feel that pushing in the airline is going to be a little set of teeth. The second thing, which is that pop, is the O-ring that's going to seal this line. Back out in our engine bay, we're going to have our airline tube that we ran through the firewall. On our main operating unit, you're going to have an air in and an air out. The air in is for the air coming in from our motorhome, which goes down to the front bumper of our vehicle. The air out is the operating unit sending air out to that brake cylinder down by our brake pedal. That is this hose right here. So what I'm going to do is, since I've got it in this tight spot, it might be a little difficult. We're just going to pop that into place. So what I'm going to do is I've got our other airline run from here down to the front bumper of our truck, right in this general area. You can see I've just got a little bit of excess. That will eventually get hooked up to another fitting, but I'm going to get this side hooked up to the air in. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop this little green tab up on this fitting. It should pop loose from our vacuum booster, our brake booster. There we go. And I'm just doing this because this will get it up to where we can work on it a little bit better here. So what we need to do here is we're going to tap into these lines. And that is going to be this little piece here that we have on top of our operating unit. This piece, I just added this on when I installed it because it was really tied up against this reservoir. So I'll go ahead and get this all connected up. Again, because it's very confusing, there's lots of hoses and stuff here. I'll connect it up and come back and explain it to you. To describe what we did here with this vacuum line, I will say before I start this, it is very, very easy to follow along in the instructions. They give you a really, really nice chart to show the direction of the check valves, where you want your T-fittings and stuff like that. But for this specific install, we'll come out of our main operating unit, go into your check valve. You want to go into the black side, coming out of the white side. You'll go down into the T-fitting, go into the leg of the T. Coming out of the T-fitting, going back towards the vehicle, use one of your, there's a two size difference barb that will help you to join the factory line with the this rubber hose that comes in our kit. We used a little bit of heat from a heat gun to warm this up. I found later on if you just push really hard, you can get that fitting to drop in there, but heating it up does make it a little bit more flexible. You will want to use a hose clamp on this because it is a harder plastic material and it doesn't bite onto the barbs as well. Coming out of our T, going the opposite direction. So this side went into the brake booster. The other side's going back towards our motor. We just put a soft loop in it. That's this loop you see here. And it'll come back over and go back into the engine going this direction. There is going to be a check valve down here. You want the black side of that check valve to go towards the engine. So you could have the white side of the check valve going towards the T-fitting. Now that we've got everything tidied up on our truck, we've got our bumper back on, we've got our wiring all nice and neat up here. I just used some 1/2-inch wire loom to run all our wiring up there. We can connect our battery charge line. I highly recommend this because your battery is going to be used by the braking system all the way down the road. And then we'll connect our fuse holder up to our battery, take our fuse and put it in place. Now on to the motorhome side of our kit. You will have to install this if you don't already have an air fitting at the back of your coach. The big T-fitting that's in your kit is designed to fit into the supply line, which our big supply line on our Freightliner chassis is right off of the tank. This is the easiest spot we found to hook into. You just want to cut that line, clean it real well, and then tie it in. Tie your fitting in here, and then we'll have an air line coming out of it going to our tank. Now on the other side of our rear axle, on the back side of it, we were able to mount our tank up onto a little metal tab that was already in here. That's what I would recommend when mounting up this tank somewhere, is just try to find something that was pre-existing that's got holes in it, maybe drill a second hole in it. I ended up having to open these holes up a little bit, but just mount it with the nuts and bolts that come with your kit, or use existing holes that are already in your frame rail. Chances are you will be able to find some. We could have taken some and put them in the bottom here, but it's kind of difficult to find a great spot for a tank that size underneath here. So look for some existing holes. When you're connecting your hoses up to the tank, you're going to have 2 connections on one side and 1 connection on the other side. The single connection by itself is going to be your supply air, which is the one we just talked about on the larger hose that we tapped into. You want to also tap into the metered air, which is essentially the air that comes out when you hit the brakes. That is going to be this fitting here that we tapped into. And then we have our line coming out, and then there's going to be 2 fittings on the other side of our tank. If this fitting is closer to the tank and this one's further away, you want to use the closer fitting to the tank. And then the further away fitting, you will tap another air line into and run all the way to the back of the coach. Once you get to the back of your coach, you want to use the nut and bolt provided, drill a couple of holes in the fiberglass bumper here, and this is more than stout enough to be able to make our connection to and from our RV. Next, you'll want to fire up your motorhome, get all the air lines charged up, hit the brakes a couple of times so that these air lines are charged too. And then we're just going to spray it with some soapy water on all of our fittings that we made, or all our connections that we made, and check for any rapidly forming air bubbles. That'll tell us whether or not there's a leak there, and if so, you have to disconnect it and plug it back in. Maybe make a cleaner cut so that it doesn't leak. Now with everything successfully installed for our kit on the motorhome side and the vehicle side, the only way to test this system is to hook it up to your motorhome, because after all, that's how it's going to get the air signal. So we'll go ahead and fire up our motorhome, and then we're going to have to pump the brakes a couple of times in order to fill our reserve tank, or a tank that came with our Air Force One, and then we should see the actuator start to work. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system is right for you in your 2019 Ford F-150.